Nice to know you still live here. What are you doing home so late anyway?
Lost track of time.
You know what time your curfew is. Where were you?
Movies.
The movie ended at midnight and your curfew's at 12:30.
I lost track of time.
Well, at least you were cute. I like that shirt. Where'd you get that from? Angel.
It's old.
Really compliments your figure. You know, maybe we can go shopping. I saw one just like it.
Good night, Ma.
We'll start first by just talking about when it was that you knew that this is what you wanted to do, and kind of how it all came together. And I know you have a family that's very involved and everything entertainment. So,
you know, since I think I like came out of the womb, got smacked on the butt and said, I'm going to be an actress. Really, I have always wanted, as far back as I can remember, I always knew what I was going to do. I knew that I was going to be an entertainer. You know, I just knew it since I was a little girl, very little girl. Never really considered anything else.
How did it manifest itself?
Oh, I was pretty obnoxious. Just always performing, running around my mother's shoes, hats, wigs. You know, I was always putting on a show in the living room, or, you know, getting into some like neighborhood production, some community production. I was in every school play, you know, you can think of. You know, so I just was like working on my craft, I guess, since I was a little girl, ruining dance recitals, you name it. You know, I was doing more the comedic thing than, you know, the dramatic thing. But always knew, which is really a blessing. You know, it's like one of the hardest things in life for most people is to find out, you know, what's my passion, what I want to do. But when you know that, you know, then it just becomes about making a path to actualize it. But that's like a huge burden off of you to know, you know, this is what I want to do.
Right. And so what was your first paying job?
My first paying job was an extra in Eddie Murphy Raw, I believe. Yeah, Eddie Murphy Raw. I was more than an extra. I actually had like one word or something. Yeah, that was my first. You know, I got like a little check for it. That was my
when
first.
did you feel like you were like, this is it. This is what I'm doing it now. Now I kind of.
I guess my first like regular job, which was A Different World, that show A Different World with Lisa Bonet. I had a recurring role on that. I was called an under 5. Those are like the fillers, so it was like a role, but they would give you like you'd never get more than 5 lines, but you couldn't tell me I hadn't hit the big time. It was you know, Allison. I'll never forget the name of my character, and it was great. It was a really great experience. I felt really like entrenched in the showbiz world. Then, like you know, I've arrived.
What's your favorite thing about being an actor? Like the most rewarding part of it for you?
The most rewarding, well, the most rewarding part about being an actor is making people happy. You know, making people happy, and especially with comedy. You know, with comedy, it's like I love the idea of doing something that makes people laugh, that makes people remember, that makes people like, you know, stop you and tell you how, you know, this thing you did just like, you know, had them cracking up, or there's something very satisfying about that, especially because there's like, you know, there's just like this little desperado inside of me that just loves to like, you know, make people laugh and loves to like, you know, express stories, and I find it very gratifying.
And what about the transition from comedy to more dramatic roles?
Well, you know, I've been wanting to expand that way for a while, and it's been difficult because people, you know, in the industry I'm in pretty much like label you and put you in a little box, and that's what you do. Right. And so that's what I keep running up against. It's like my agent tries to like get me in on audition for a serious dramatic part, and I'm met with resistance. They won't even see me because they feel like, you know, that's not what Kim does. You know, she's a wonderful comedian, but we need someone with some weight. We need somebody with some dramatic experience. So this was a very unique situation in that Dee and Nikisa, the producer and director of Pariah, they were open to having me come in and at least read. And I did, and they loved what I did, and I got the role. So I'm hoping that this leads to more opportunities like that, where I can, you know, go in and show people that, you know, you know, an actor is an actor, be it comedic or dramatic. It's like, you know, the material, you give me the material, and I'll deliver whatever there is to deliver. And you know, hopefully those doors are gonna.
Yeah, there was not one bit of comedy in your
No,
role at all.
yeah.
You were phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
Really amazing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
How was it for you with you know, stepping out of comedy and doing a drama that was very intense? I mean, it wasn't just a drama. It was
Yeah.
intense and emotional and
It was great. It was a great, challenge and very, very satisfying. I've been like studying, doing some studying with a wonderful acting teacher, Diana Castle, for a few years now. So, I just really, really felt ready. I felt ready. So when this came to me, it was with a lot of excitement that I dove into the character, and it just was a very profound experience for me. It really was, and I just the script was so beautifully written, and the whole the theme of the movie is so important, especially now. It's just so timely, when you hear about all these gay kids committed suicide and hurting themselves because of the rejection that they're, getting at the hands of their peers and stuff. It's just like, this is a beautiful story that needs to be told, so that people can dialogue and people can hopefully, see the film and be transformed in some small way. Their heart can just open a little bit to understand that we're all perfect, and you need to embrace people as they are and not try to make them into who you want them to be. And people's sexuality should really be the least of our concerns. We have so many big fish to fry, and it seems like wasted energy to me to try to reject somebody because they like a girl or because he likes a guy. I mean, it's silly.
You so much love Alike, and so you're so drawn to her, and her story is so painful to watch at times, especially with her mom.
Yeah.
And the one scene where the mom hits her. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that for you there were very intense emotional scenes. And how do you prepare for scenes like that?
You just really think about where you are. Think about what has happened to you on this journey so far. You think about what's at stake. You think about what's at stake, and if you think about the right things, the emotion is just there. It's just there. This is really happening to me. This is really happening to me. My daughter's killing me. She's killing me, literally killing me by rejecting what I want her to be. And so that pain is real, and it's expressed.
How do you kind of reset the button when you step off set and you're back into and leave it behind? Do you leave it behind?
You do. You do. I do. I hear some actors don't leave it behind, stays with them forever. A remnant of it stays with you, but what stayed with me was not all Audrey's pain and, all that deep emotion and stuff. What stayed with me really was the beauty of Alike's spirit and the flight of her spirit into just fully expressing her true authenticity, regardless of what her mom or anybody else had to say. That's what stayed with me, because we all have it's a basic human desire that we all want to be accepted for who we are, who we truly are. You don't really want to put on masks. People do it all the time, but they do it because they feel like who they are isn't enough. So I thought that was just so powerful, the way the story ends with her. And that's what I took with me. So I left feeling like uplifted by that journey, and that stayed with me.
It's really tough to get a movie made.
Tough, excuse me?
To get a movie made. And
Yeah.
but this was a really interesting process with the Sundance Lab. And what was the most challenging part of making the movie?
It's very low budget. So, some of the little amenities those actresses are used to weren't available, so you had to adjust to, not having a trailer. So you just like put a blanket over your head to like get into your character, just get some alone, because we were in tight quarters, so all of us, we were in tight quarters for the most of the movie. So just like finding like a little space, like a little nook that you can go to so that you can like get into the, the space that you need to be in before you go in front of the cameras was a challenge. That to me was like the most challenging. But it was so wonderful in the end because I learned that I really didn't need the things that I thought I needed in order to be able to do that. Do you know what I mean? You learn just how little you really need to be able to do what you need to do.
So what's been the most rewarding part of the process for you?
The response, we went to Sundance, and just the response has been overwhelmingly positive, and audience members have come up to us and just expressed how they either went through something similar with their parents, or they were going through something like that, or to hear that as much as people wanted to hate my character, that a lot of times I hear that they just couldn't hate her, that they found her to be sympathetic, that they sympathized with her, even though what she was doing was terrible, and it's like, but I was happy because that was a concern for me. I didn't want Audrey to be a villain because that's not the way I saw her, and she's really not. There's no villains. We're all victims. She's a victim of the small-mindedness that she was raised with the values that were instilled in her that she holds on so dearly. Her values from her church, her values from her parents. So she was a victim, and now she's victimizing her daughter. So that's the way I saw it. So I was happy that people received it that way. For the most part, I'm sure some people hate her, but for the most part, she's not seen as a villain, and that was important to me. But just the response from the film, people really being moved. There's been a lot of emotion expressed with this film in these screenings and stuff. People like really like releasing a lot of stuff, and it's very cathartic for them and very satisfying for us. Because you feel like, okay, we did what we were supposed to do. We created a story that's moving people, that's helping people to think and maybe frame things in a different way, maybe have a little more compassion in their hearts. And, at the end of the day, that's very gratifying.
This video raises questions, and I need for you to be extremely honest in the comments when answering them. And just so you know, I have 4 questions. Number 1. What is your favorite thing about Kim Wayans? Number 2. What was it you knew you were going to do always in life? Number 3. What's your first paying job? And number 4. Tell me some topics in the comments that you feel people need to discuss more. Now, please be honest when answering these questions. Share this video with anyone you deem necessary, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.